The strange cargo dropped the trade outpost sat alone on the edge of space, far from any major route. It was small, dusty, and mostly forgotten. Only smugglers, broken traders, and desperate pilots came here now. Reed was one of them, a human cargo pilot. Reed had flown across the stars for most of his life. He didn't ask questions, he picked up crates, dropped them off, and moved on. No attachments, no trouble, that was his rule. Today, he had come to drop supplies, food packs, power cells, and water filters. He wanted to get paid and leave fast, but fate had other plans. As he unloaded the final crate, he saw an old alien trader standing near the dock's corner. The alien was tall, with wrinkled green skin and a nervous twitch. He held a small metal flask and shook it. "Trade?" the alien asked, his voice rough. Reed raised an eyebrow. "For what?" The alien took a deep swig and waved a hand toward a large, locked container behind him. "You give me drink, I give you that." Reed crossed his arms. "What's in it?" The alien chuckled. "Gift, very special, worth more than booze, but I need drink now." Something felt off, but curiosity pulled at Reed. He handed over a small bottle of Terran rum from his emergency stash. The alien grabbed it like treasure, drinking quickly. Then he handed over a digital key. "It's yours now," the alien said, slurring his words. "Don't open here, go far, then open." Reed frowned. "Why?" The alien just smiled and walked away into the dark corridor. Moments later, he was gone. Reed looked at the container. It was long, silver, and sealed tight. No markings, no codes. Just a quiet hum from inside. Against his better judgment, Reed loaded the strange container onto his ship. He left the station an hour later, heading toward a quiet orbit above a nearby moon. Once in safe space, he activated the key. His SSS. The container opened slowly, cold mist poured out, and inside were three girls. They were lying on soft bedding, curled up together. Their skin was a soft violet, glowing gently in the dim light. Long, white silver hair flowed around their shoulders. They wore light clothing, alien in style. One by one, their eyes opened. Big, glowing, and afraid. Reed stepped back, shocked. "What the hell?" The oldest girl, maybe 16 by human guess, slowly sat up and stared at him. She looked at his face carefully. Then, in a soft voice, she whispered a single word, "Father?" Reed blinked. "What?" The other two girls sat up, still sleepy, still scared. One was younger, maybe 12. The smallest looked barely 8. All of them stared at him like they knew him, or like they had been told to expect him. The oldest girl spoke. "Again, you are our new father." That is what he said. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. "No," he said quickly. "I'm not your father. I didn't ask for this." The middle girl tilted her head. "But he said you would take care of us." Double quotes. Reed shook his head, trying to think. This wasn't a job. This wasn't cargo. These were living beings, children. And someone had just given them away for alcohol. He checked for tracking beacons. Nothing, no ID tags, no medical chips. Whoever made them had wiped their records clean. "Do you have names?" he asked. The oldest answered. "He never gave us names. He called us Unit 1, 2, and 3. Reed's chest tightened. "You're not units, you're people." The youngest girl reached out and gently touched his arm. Her fingers were warm. Her skin shimmered faintly with light. "I'm cold," she said softly. Reed stood frozen. He had flown through asteroid storms, escaped pirates, and survived engine failures. But right now, he didn't know what to do. These girls, alien, beautiful, and innocent, had been created for something, but they didn't even know what. They were lost, alone. And somehow, they were his now. He sighed and stood up. "All right," he said, "let's start with names. They don't belong to anyone." Reed sat at the control console, watching the stars pass slowly outside his ship's window. In the back room, the three alien girls slept close together. He had given them warm blankets and protein bars. They had never tasted real food before. Their faces lit up like it was a feast. He still didn't understand how this had happened. 3 living, breathing girls traded for alcohol. No names, no past, no home. And now, they called him Dad. Reed opened his datapad and ran every scan he had: medical, identity, and galactic tracking. Nothing. The girls had no records. It was like they had never existed. He looked over the readings again. Each girl had advanced DNA strands, slightly different from each other, but all mixed with artificial edits. Engineered, grown, designed. Not born, they were made, and then discarded. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. It was the oldest girl. Her long white silver hair was still messy from sleep. Her violet skin shimmered faintly under the ship's lights. She stood near him, hands folded. "You didn't leave," she said quietly. Reed looked up. "Did you think I would?" The girl nodded slowly. "The others did, every time." He stood and pulled out a chair. "Sit." She obeyed gently, watching his face like she was trying to read it. "I need to ask something," Reed said. "Do You know where you came from. She hesitated. A cold place. White walls, no windows. We slept in glass rooms. He frowned. A lab. She nodded. We were told we would serve someone, a buyer, a master, but he changed his mind. He gave us away. Then another one took us. Then another. Then she trailed off. Then whispered. Then you. Reed's jaw tightened. I didn't buy you. She looked at him carefully. You gave something and he gave us. That was a mistake, he said. You're not things. You're not cargo. She tilted her head. Then what are we? Reed paused. Then said firmly, you're children. You're people, and now, you're safe. The girl's eyes widened slightly. No one ever said that before. He softened his voice. Do you want a name? She blinked. We've never had one. He looked at her. Then nodded. What about Mira? The name floated in the quiet air. She said it to herself. Mira, it means light. Reed explained. She smiled, small, uncertain, but real. Then they need names too. Reed nodded. Let's ask them together. Later, the other two girls sat across from him at the table. Mira stood proudly behind them. The middle girl was playful, curious, always watching with sharp eyes. Reed smiled. You remind me of someone who was always exploring. How about Lyra? She beamed. Lyra. That's pretty. The youngest girl clung to Mira's side, quiet but trusting. Reed leaned down. And you, how about Nova? She whispered. Nova. I like that. Mira placed a hand on each of her sisters. We have names now. They weren't units anymore. They were Mira, Lyra, and Nova that night. While the girls slept again in the back room, Reed sat in the pilot's chair, tired but awake. He stared at the star map. Somewhere out there, someone made those girls. Designed them, abandoned them, and someone might be looking for them now. He activated a scan sweep just in case. Then he froze. A signal, a very small, hidden code. Inside Nova's skin, a tracker. His heart stopped. He quickly jammed the signal, but it was too late. Someone knew. Someone was coming. He looked back toward the sleeping girls. They had no idea. They were finally laughing, resting, dreaming, and now he would have to protect them. No matter what. Learning what family means, the ship drifted in quiet orbit over a blue gas giant. Hiding from traffic lanes, Reed had shut off most external signals. No messages, no calls. No lights. Just silence. Inside, though, the ship felt alive. Mira helped cook, though she didn't understand half the tools. Lyra explored every room like a tiny storm, touching buttons and pulling open panels. And Nova? She followed Reed everywhere, holding his shirt with one hand and her favorite stuffed cushion in the other. It had been just 3 days since he gave them names. But something inside the ship had changed. It felt like a home. Reed watched Mira at the small galley station. She stirred something that looked like stew but had way too much spice in it. Smoke rose from the pot. He coughed and laughed. You're supposed to cook it, not fight it. Mira turned, frustrated. Why does food need to be so difficult? He took the spoon from her, blew on it, and tasted. He coughed again, because if it was easy, it wouldn't taste like victory. Mira cracked a smile. Victory tastes awful, she muttered. They laughed together. Lyra came running in, waving a device. Dad, I fixed the wall light in my room. It turns pink now. Reed raised an eyebrow. That's not a fix, that's sabotage. She grinned. Then I'm a saboteur. Nova peeked from behind the corner. She was quiet as always. She walked up, pulled at Reed's sleeve, and whispered, Can you tuck us in tonight? He nodded. The words hit him deeper than he expected. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't just a cargo pilot. He was becoming something else. Someone they trusted. That night, after he tucked them in, Reed sat alone again. He pulled up the tracker data. The signal was weak, but still they're buried deep under Nova's skin. Someone had tagged her like a piece of equipment. It was cruel. Reed had disabled the pulse, but that didn't mean others wouldn't find her. Whoever built them was careful and probably dangerous, and if they wanted the girls back, they'd come. He checked the ship's sensors again, still quiet, but he didn't trust quiet anymore. The next day, Mira asked, Why do you do all this? You feed us, you fix things, you gave us names. Reed thought for a moment. Because someone should have done it a long time ago. Mira looked confused. Even if we were made, not born, doesn't matter. You breathe, think, laugh, and cry. That makes you real. Lyra jumped in. Even if we're different, Reed nodded. Different is just another word for special. Nova climbed into his lap and whispered, Do real dads stay? Reed looked into her glowing eyes. Yes, he said softly, Real dads stay. Later that evening, Lyra was showing Mira how to override the door controls just for fun. Nova was curled up near the control console. Suddenly, the ship lights dimmed. An alert blinked once. Reed turned sharply. Unknown ship entering system. It was far, but heading their way. His stomach tightened. He had known this peace wouldn't last. He walked to the sleeping area and looked at the girls laughing, happy, alive. He couldn't let anyone take that away from them. Not now. Not ever. He walked back To the pilot's chair, eyes cold and focused, family, he whispered, is worth fighting for. They were never meant to escape. The ship floated above the moon's icy rings. Hiding behind its magnetic field, cold shadows passed across the hull. Inside, the air was tense. Reed stood silently at the command console, staring at the screen. The ship was getting closer. It was black, fast, and shaped like a blade. No ID signal. No official markings. But Reed knew what it was, a retrieval ship. Whoever built the girls had finally come to get them back, and they hadn't come to talk. Mira entered the room quietly. Her long white hair was braided now, something Lyra had learned by watching old vids. She looked at the red blinking signal and then at Reed. You knew they'd come, she said. Softly. Reed nodded. I hoped I was wrong. She walked closer. They'll hurt you, hurt us, not if I stop them. Mira looked down. We were never meant to leave that place. Reed turned toward her. What was that place? She took a deep breath. A labby under the moons of Zereth. They called it the garden, but there were no trees, just walls. Glass, lights, pain. He frowned. Why were you created? Mira's eyes shimmered. To serve, to obey. Each of us was designed differently. Lyra thinks fast. Nova can heal. I can sense fear. Reed's eyes narrowed. They built you as weapons. Mira nodded slowly. But we failed the tests. Failed. They said we were too emotional. We cried when others were hurt. We hugged each other. We wanted names. Reed felt his throat tighten. So they threw you away. Mira whispered. They called us defective. He clenched his fists. You're not defective. You're alive in the engine room. Lyra found an old data chip stuck inside one of the broken side panels. Curious, she brought it to Reed. He played it. A cold voice spoke. Subject Unit Series 9, emotionally unstable, bonded with siblings. Refused isolation chamber. Units are unsellable, marked for disposal. The screen showed the three girls. Younger, locked in small rooms, crying, reaching through glass to hold each other's hands. Reed stopped the playback. His chest felt like stone. He turned to the girls. You're not property. You never were, and I'm not letting them take you. Nova looked up at him. But what if they're stronger? Reed kneeled and held her close. Then I'll be smarter. He began preparing the ship for a move. Emergency protocols, alternate exit routes. He didn't plan to win a war, just escape again, but the retrieval ship was fast. Within minutes, it arrived in orbit. It began scanning the moon. A message flashed across Reed's screen. Surrender units 9A, 9B, and 9C, or be neutralized. Reed looked at the girls. They huddled together. He sent one message back. They're not units. And they're not yours. The enemy ship began charging weapons. Reed raced through the ship. He gave Nova an emergency med kit and hid her in a crawl space. He handed Lyra the power override codes and told her, shut down the main core if they tried to board. To Mira, he gave something different, his old service knife. Only if you have no choice, he said. Mira nodded, eyes steady. The lights dimmed, alarms flashed. They were here. A blast rocked the outer hull. Metal groaned. The girls screamed. Drones began cutting through the ship's side door. Reed grabbed his old rifle and stood by the entrance. He looked at the girls. I'll hold them off. Mira grabbed his arm. You're one human. Reed looked her in the eye. I'm one father. The attack that changed everything. The walls shook. Sparks flew from the overhead lights as a blast door tore open at the edge of the ship. Smoke rolled in. Cold air rushed through the corridor like a storm. And then they came. Black metal. Drones with long limbs and red scanning eyes poured into the hallway. Each one armed, each one ready to capture or kill. Reed stood tall in front of them, blaster raised. I warned you, he growled. They're not yours. He fired. The first drone exploded, its core lighting up the corridor like lightning. The others rushed forward, metal claws slashing the air. Reed ducked, rolled, fired again. But they kept coming. In the control room, Mira pulled Nova into cover while Lyra tapped furiously at the console. I'm locking the inner doors, Lyra said, fingers flying. That'll slow them. Nova peeked out, eyes wide with fear. What if they get Dad? Mira pulled her closer. Then we don't let them. In the corridor, one of the drones slammed Reed into the wall. His blaster dropped. Metal claws reached for his throat. Suddenly ZZZZZAP. The drone shook violently and fell to the floor, twitching, sparking. Behind it stood Mira, holding a shock prod. She had struck without hesitation. More drones turned toward her. Reed yelled, Mira, go back, but she stood her ground. I'm not running. One drone aimed its weapon and was blasted from behind. Lyra had rerouted a power cable to the hallway lights. The surge shot through the floor, frying two drones at once. I told you pink lights were useful, she shouted. Reed grabbed his blaster again and pulled Mira behind him. But the biggest drone of all now entered a heavy enforcer unit, reinforced armor, no visible weak points. It stomped forward, targeting all three of them. Nova ran into the hall, holding a glowing pack in her hands. No, Mira screamed. Nova dropped to her knees, opened the pack and activated it, a pulse of healing. Energy rippled out, Reed's bruises vanished, Mira's burns faded. Even one broken wall light flickered back to life. But Nova collapsed, drained. Reed scooped her up as the Enforcer drone raised its cannon. Then, without warning, crack. The ship's floor beneath the drone gave way. Lyra had overridden the gravity plates. The massive machine dropped into the cargo bay below, straight into the cryo-storage chamber. Reed sealed the hatch. Silence. Smoke drifted through the halls. Reed slowly stood, holding Nova in his arms. Mira and Lyra rushed to his side. "We won," Mira said softly. Reed looked down at the three girls, shaking, dirty but alive. "No," he whispered, "we survived." Hours later, the girls rested in the med-bay. Nova was already healing. Lyra had reactivated the engines. Mira stayed at Reed's side, watching his every move. "You were going to face them alone," she said quietly. "I had to," he replied. "No," Mira corrected him, "you chose to. That's what made the difference." Reed looked at her. "You're not weapons, you're not mistakes, you're brave, you're smart, and you're mine now." Tears welled in Mira's eyes. "Then we'll fight for you too." Reed put a hand on her shoulder. "And next time," he said, smiling faintly, "we fight together." Outside, the stars moved slowly past the ship. They had all changed, not because of the battle, but because for the first time they knew what family really meant. They chose their father. The damage was repaired. The lights were stable. The air was warm again. But inside the ship, everything felt different. Reed stood alone at the front console, staring at a message glowing on the screen. "Reward, 3 experimental units missing, minus 100,000 credits per unit. Return to Xerath Labs." Dead or alive, the words made his blood run cold. It wasn't just one ship that wanted them. Now the whole galaxy knew they weren't just lost girls anymore. They were wanted, hunted, priced. And all Reed had done was try to give them a name. Behind him, the door slid open with a soft hum. Mira stepped in, followed by Lyra and Nova. Each of them had changed. Mira walked taller now. She no longer looked afraid. Her glowing eyes were steady. Lyra's hair was tied back in a messy loop, grease on her hands. She'd been working in the engine bay. Nova, smallest of them all, had a sparkle in her eyes again. She was holding a drawing, Reed standing between the three of them, a sun shining overhead. Mira looked at the message on the screen. "You saw it too?" Reed asked. She nodded. "We knew this day would come. You don't have to stay," he said slowly. "If I hide you somewhere quiet, somewhere safe." "No," Mira cut him off. "We're not leaving you." Lyra stepped forward. "They want to turn us back into tools," Nova added softly. "But you turned us into daughters." Reed turned away, trying to hold back emotion. "You don't understand how dangerous this will get. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, entire factions might come for you." "We're not scared," Mira said. "You should be." "We were scared before," she replied, "back when no one wanted us. Now we have something worth protecting." Reed looked at them all. "So what do you want to do?" Mira looked at her sisters, then back at Reed. "We want to stay with our father, no matter what." Lyra nodded. "You gave us a name. We choose to give ourselves something too," Nova whispered. "We choose you." Silence filled the ship. Not fear, not panic. Just a quiet, deep bond, stronger than anything Reed had ever known. Later that day, they gathered in the living room of the ship. It had once been a storage hold. Now it was filled with blankets, books, lights, and small drawings pinned on the wall. Reed handed each of them something new. ID tags, real ones, linked to his name, registered under Galactic protection. "You're no longer missing. You're mine now," he said. Mira smiled. "Even if they come for us," Reed nodded. "Let them come." At the edge of the galaxy, a cloaked satellite picked up the ID registration. Inside a dark control center, a tall figure watched the update with cold eyes. "They're still alive," he muttered. An assistant asked, "Should we deploy capture teams again?" The figure frowned. "No, not this time. Now the girl leads. Now she chooses. That's the problem." He turned to the stars. "We gave them minds. He gave them a reason." He paused. "And now they call him father." Back on the ship, the girl sat curled around Reed, listening to old Earth music. It wasn't a normal life. It wasn't even safe, but it was theirs. And for the first time since the day they were created, they knew one thing for sure: they belonged. A real home at last. The stars above were no longer moving. The ship had landed at the edge of a quiet green moon, far from trade routes and bounty hunters. Reed stepped out onto solid ground. The air was fresh. The sky was pale purple, and tall glowing trees swayed gently in the wind. Behind him, Mira walked slowly, one hand on Nova's shoulder. Lyra skipped ahead, scanning the soil with a scanner she modified herself. "This is it?" Mira asked. Reed smiled. "Yeah, home." The girls stood in silence, staring at the wide valley in front of them. No ships, no labs, no orders, just open sky and gentle wind. Reed had spent weeks searching, and now He had finally found a tan, unregistered moon in a forgotten system, quiet, safe here. They could finally build a life of their own. The next few weeks were busy. Reed repurposed the ship's landing module into a permanent home. He used his old skills to build walls, beds, and solar panels. Lyra helped install gravity supports. Nova planted strange blue flowers she found nearby. Mira created a watch schedule just in case. Even though there were no signs of danger. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. One evening, the four of them sat outside near a warm fire. Mira was reading an old book. Lyra was roasting something sticky over the flames. Nova rested her head on Reed's arm, already half asleep. The stars above twinkled quietly. I never thought I'd have this, Mira said softly. Reed looked at her. Have what? A name, a home. A voice that matters. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out something small, a carved wooden pendant. Handcrafted, simple. He gave it to her. It's yours, he said. You're not just Mira, you're my daughter. She blinked, eyes wide. Then Lyra jumped up. Hey, what about me? Reed smiled and tossed her a second pendant. Lyra laughed. Now it's official. Nova opened her hand. Reed gently placed the last pendant in her palm. She whispered, we're real now. Reed nodded. You always were. Much later that night, after the fire burned low and the girls had gone to sleep inside, Reed sat alone on the steps of their new home. He looked up at the stars. He had once flown from one system to another, carrying crates and credits, never stopping, never feeling anything. Now, he would fight an army for 3 alien girls who called him Dad. From across the stars. He had given them something their creators never did: choice, family, love. And they had given him something he thought he'd never find again: a reason to stay. A rustle came from inside. Mira peeked out. Can't sleep? She asked. Reed shook his head. Just thinking. She sat beside him, quiet for a while. Then she asked, do you think they'll come again? He looked into the night sky, then at her. Maybe, he said honestly. But if they do, he reached out, ruffled her hair, they'll have to get through me first. Mira smiled, soft, warm, and real. We'll protect you too, Dad. And for the first time, Reed believed it, not just in her, but in all of them, together. On a forgotten moon under endless stars, they finally had a real home.